Hi friends! You're on the Staley channel, and today we have a special episode that will definitely give you goosebumps. We've rounded up the craziest and most surprising cheating stories people have shared on Reddit. Get ready for shocking confessions, incredible twists and moments that will definitely stay in your memory for a long time. Don't switch, because what you hear next will make you think about a lot of things. Let's go! I accidentally saw my wife walking with my boss, and now I realize their connection is much deeper than I thought. I guess I should start by saying that I've always considered myself a pretty average guy. I have a decent job, a loving wife, and a couple of kids. My life has always been predictable, and I liked it that way. At least I did until that fateful afternoon when everything changed. It was a Wednesday, and I had taken the day off work to take care of some errands. My wife Emily had told me she was going to meet a friend for lunch, so I didn't think much of it when I saw her getting ready that morning. She kissed me goodbye, like always, and left the house looking radiant in her favorite blue dress. I went about my day, feeling content and productive as I ticked off tasks from my to-do list. Around noon, I found myself near the downtown area, close to the restaurant where Emily said she would be meeting her friend. I decided to surprise her and maybe join them for a quick hello before heading back home. I parked my car and walked toward the restaurant, enjoying the sunny weather and the bustling city atmosphere. As I approached the entrance, I saw her. Emily was standing outside, laughing and chatting animatedly with someone. I felt a warm rush of affection at the sight of her happy and carefree. But then, I saw who she was with, and my heart dropped into my stomach. Standing next to her was my boss, Michael. He was a tall, charismatic man, always impeccably dressed and confident. I had always admired him professionally, but seeing him with my wife stirred a feeling of unease. They were standing close, too close for comfort, and when Michael reached out to tuck a loose strand of hair behind Emily's ear, I felt a surge of jealousy. I quickly ducked behind a nearby pillar, not wanting to be seen. My mind raced with questions. Why was she with him? Was this the friend she mentioned? I decided to wait and watch, hoping to gather some context before jumping to conclusions. They talked for a few more minutes before heading inside the restaurant. I followed at a safe distance, slipping into the restaurant and finding a seat where I could see them but remain unnoticed. My heart pounded as I watched them settle into a corner booth, their heads close together in what seemed like an intimate conversation. I strained to hear their words, but the noise of the busy restaurant made it impossible. Instead, I focused on their body language. Emily looked relaxed, happy even, while Michael appeared attentive and engaged. There was a familiarity between them that I couldn't ignore, and I felt a knot of anxiety tightening in my chest. After about an hour, they finished their meal and stood to leave. I quickly paid for my coffee and followed them outside, keeping a safe distance. They walked down the street, chatting and laughing, completely oblivious to my presence. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more than friendship between them. As they reached a nearby park, they found a secluded bench and sat down. Michael took Emily's hand in his, and I saw her smile softly at him. My stomach churned as I watched them. This was more than just a friendly lunch. This was a connection, a bond that seemed to go deeper than I could have imagined. I stayed hidden, my mind racing with thoughts and emotions. Should I confront them? Should I wait and gather more evidence? I felt paralyzed by indecision. My heart ached at the possibility that my wife was having an affair, but I needed to be sure before I took any drastic steps. After what felt like an eternity, they stood up and walked back towards the downtown area. I followed them to a nearby hotel, and my worst fears were confirmed when they went inside together. I felt a wave of nausea and betrayal wash over me. This wasn't just a lunch. This was something much more serious. I sat in my car for a long time trying to process what I had seen. The woman I loved, the mother of my children, was involved with my boss. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks, and I felt my world crumbling around me. I had to confront her, but I knew I needed to do it carefully. When I finally drove home, Emily was already there, acting as if nothing had happened. She greeted me with a kiss and asked about my day. I played along, my mind in a fog as I tried to figure out my next move. How could I confront her without revealing that I had been spying on her? How could I get the truth without causing a scene. That night, as we lay in bed, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the events of the day in my mind, trying to make sense of it all. I needed to talk to someone, but I didn't know who to trust. I felt alone, betrayed, and utterly confused. The next morning, I decided to take a different approach. I called in sick to work and spent the day doing some detective work. I checked our phone records, her social media, anything I could think of to find clues about her relationship with Michael. The more I dug, the more I realized that this had been going on for a long time. There were late-night texts, secret meetings, and even a second phone that she had kept hidden from me. I felt a mix of anger and sadness as I uncovered the extent of her betrayal. How could she do this to me? To our family? I knew I needed to confront her, but I wanted to have all the facts first. I decided to wait a few more days, to gather more evidence and to plan my confrontation carefully. In the meantime, I started to pay more attention to her behavior. I noticed the little things I had overlooked before, the late nights at work, the sudden interest in her appearance, the frequent girls' nights that left me home with the kids. It all made sense now, and I felt a growing rage at the thought of how she had deceived me. Finally, after a few days of gathering evidence and rehearsing my confrontation, I felt ready. That evening, as we sat down for dinner, I took a deep breath and looked her in the eye. "Emily," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "we need to talk." She looked up at me, surprised by my serious tone. "What is it?" she asked, her brow furrowing in concern. "I know about you and Michael," I said, watching her reaction closely. Her face went pale, and for a moment she looked like a deer caught in headlights. Then she composed herself and put on a mask of confusion. "What are you talking about?" she asked, trying to sound innocent. "Don't lie to me," I said, my voice rising. "I've seen you with him. I know about the lunches, the meetings, the hotel. I know everything." She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see the wheels turning in her mind as she tried to figure out her next move. Finally, she let out a sigh and looked down at her hands. "It's not what you think," she said softly. "It's complicated." "Then explain it to me," I demanded. "Tell me the truth." She hesitated, then began to speak, her voice trembling. She told me about how she had met Michael at a work function, how they had started talking and realized they had a lot in common. She claimed it had started as a friendship, but over time, it had become something more. She insisted that she had never meant to hurt me, that she had felt lonely and unappreciated and had turned to Michael for comfort. I listened, my heart breaking with every word. She cried and apologized, but I could see that she was more sorry about being caught than about what she had done. I felt a wave of anger and betrayal, and I knew that our marriage would never be the same. That night, I slept on the couch, unable to even look at her. The next few days were a blur of arguments and tears. We tried to talk, to find some way to salvage our relationship, but the trust was gone. I couldn't get the image of her with Michael out of my head, and every time I looked at her, I felt a mix of love and rage. Eventually, we decided to separate. It was one of the hardest decisions I had ever made, but I knew it was the right one. I needed time to heal, to figure out who I was without her. I threw myself into my work, trying to distract myself from the pain, but it was always there, lurking in the back of my mind. I found a support group for people who had been betrayed by their partners, and it helped to talk to others who had been through similar experiences. I started seeing a therapist who helped me process my emotions and begin to rebuild my life. In the months that followed, I began to find a new sense of normalcy. I reconnected with old friends, took up new hobbies, and focused on being the best father I could be to my children. It wasn't easy, but slowly, I began to heal. Emily and I eventually finalized our divorce. It was a bittersweet moment, but it also felt like a new beginning. I knew I would always carry the scars of her betrayal, but I also knew that I was stronger than I had ever realized. Looking back, I can see that her affair was a wake-up call. It forced me to confront the issues in our marriage and in myself. It was a painful lesson, but it taught me the importance of honesty, communication, and self-respect. Now, as I move forward with my life, I carry those lessons with me. I've learned to trust my instincts, to value myself, and to never settle for less than I deserve. And most importantly, I've learned that even in the darkest times, there is always hope for a new beginning. Let's move on to the next story. My partner set up a romantic dinner to celebrate our anniversary, but later I discovered it was just a cover for his betrayal. They say ignorance is bliss, and I used to believe it. Now, looking back on that fateful night, I realize how much truth there is in those words. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how a seemingly perfect evening turned into the most heart-wrenching experience of my life. Our anniversary was approaching, and I was excited. Alex and I had been together for 5 years, and despite the usual ups and downs, I believed we were happy. We had built a life together that I was proud of. A cozy apartment, a circle of wonderful friends, and countless memories of laughter and love. I was eager to celebrate our relationship and looked forward to the romantic dinner Alex had been hinting at for weeks. On the day of our anniversary, Alex woke me up with a gentle kiss and a tray of breakfast in bed. He had made my favorite pancakes, complete with fresh strawberries and whipped cream. As I savored each bite, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude and love. I had no idea that this seemingly perfect day would end in heartbreak. Alex had taken the day off work to spend it with me, which was unusual for him. He was a dedicated professional, often putting in long hours at the office. But today, he seemed determined to make it special. We spent the morning reminiscing about our early days together, flipping through photo albums, and sharing stories about how we had fallen in love. In the afternoon, Alex suggested we take a walk in the park where we had our first date. As we strolled hand in hand, the memories of that day came flooding back. It was autumn then, and the park was a riot of colors. Today, the cherry blossoms were in full bloom, and the air was filled with their sweet fragrance. It felt like a scene from a movie, too perfect to be real. As the sun began to set, Alex led me back to our apartment. When I walked through the door, I was greeted by the sight of a beautifully set dining table, complete with candles and a bouquet of red roses. The aroma of my favorite dishes wafted from the kitchen, and I felt tears of joy well up in my eyes. Alex had outdone himself. We sat down to dinner and everything was perfect. The food was delicious, the wine was exquisite, and the conversation flowed effortlessly. We talked about our dreams for the future, our plans for a family, and the adventures we still wanted to embark on. I felt an overwhelming sense of love and contentment, convinced that I was the luckiest woman in the world. After dinner, Alex suggested we move to the living room. He had set up a cozy spot by the fireplace, complete with soft blankets and pillows. We cuddled up together, and he handed me a small, elegantly wrapped box. My heart raced with anticipation as I opened it to find a beautiful necklace with a pendant shaped like a heart. Inside the heart, our initials were engraved. "It's beautiful," I whispered, feeling a lump in my throat. "I'm glad you like it," Alex replied, his eyes filled with warmth. "I wanted you to have something that symbolizes our love and the journey we've shared." I kissed him, feeling a surge of emotion. At that moment, I couldn't have been happier. I had no idea that everything was about to come crashing down. Later that night, after we'd gone to bed, I woke up to the sound of Alex's phone buzzing. He had left it on the nightstand, and the screen lit up with a series of messages. I tried to ignore it, but the constant buzzing was impossible to ignore. Reluctantly, I reached over to silence it, and that's when I saw the name on the screen, Emma. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. Emma was a colleague of Alex, someone he had mentioned a few times in passing. I had never thought much of it, assuming she was just another co-worker. But the flurry of messages at this hour seemed suspicious. Unable to quell my curiosity, I unlocked his phone and opened the messages. What I saw made my blood run cold. There were dozens of messages between Alex and Emma, some of them innocent enough, but others filled with flirtatious banter and explicit content. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the conversations, my mind reeling with shock and disbelief. How could this be happening? On our anniversary, no less? I felt a wave of nausea as the realization hit me. The romantic dinner, the thoughtful gifts, the perfect day. It had all been a cover. Alex had orchestrated this elaborate evening to mask his betrayal. I couldn't stay in bed any longer. I quietly slipped out of the bedroom and went to the living room, my mind racing with thoughts and emotions. The room that had felt so cozy and inviting just hours before now felt suffocating. I sat down on the couch, tears streaming down my face, as I tried to process what I had just discovered. Minutes felt like hours as I sat there, my mind replaying the events of the day and the messages I had read. I felt a mixture of anger, sadness, and betrayal. How could Alex do this to me, to us? I thought we were happy, that we had something special. But clearly, I had been living in a fantasy. Eventually, I heard Alex stirring in the bedroom. I wiped my tears and took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I knew I had to confront him to get answers, but I was terrified of what he might say. When he walked into the living room, he looked surprised to see me awake. "Sarah, what are you doing up?" he asked, concern etched on his face. I looked at him, my heart breaking all over again. "I saw your messages, Alex," I said, my voice trembling. "With Emma." His face went pale, and for a moment he was speechless. Then he sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "Sarah, I can explain," he started, but I cut him off. "Explain what?" I demanded, my voice rising. "Explain how you've been cheating on me? How you used our anniversary as a cover for your affair? How you could betray me like this?" He looked down, unable to meet my gaze. "It's not what you think," he said quietly. "Emma and I. It's complicated." "Complicated?" I repeated, my anger boiling over. "What could possibly be complicated about this, Alex? You lied to me. You cheated on me. There's nothing complicated about that." He finally looked up, his eyes filled with regret. "I'm sorry, Sarah," he said, his voice breaking. "I never meant for it to go this far. It started as a harmless flirtation, but then it escalated and I didn't know how to stop it." I shook my head, unable to believe what I was hearing. "You didn't know how to stop it?" I repeated, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "You could have stopped it by not starting it in the first place, by being honest with me, by respecting our relationship." He reached out to touch my arm, but I pulled away, unable to bear his touch. "Sarah, please," he pleaded. "I love you. This doesn't change that." "Doesn't change that?" I echoed, my voice filled with disbelief. "How can you say that, Alex? How can you claim to love me while betraying me with another woman?" He looked down again, tears filling his eyes. "I know I messed up," he said quietly. "I know I hurt you, and I hate myself for it. But I still love you, and I want to make this right." I felt a surge of anger and frustration. How could he be so blind, so selfish? "You can't just make this right, Alex," I said, my voice cold. "You've broken my trust, shattered my heart. I don't know if we can come back from this." He didn't say anything, and the silence between us felt like a chasm. I stood up, unable to sit still any longer. "I need some space," I said, my voice trembling. "I need time to think." Without waiting for a response, I walked out of the living room and went to our bedroom. I packed a bag with a few essentials, my mind numb with shock and pain. As I left the apartment, I felt a mix of relief and sorrow. Relief that I was getting away from the source of my pain, but sorrow for the life and love I had lost. I spent the next few days staying with a friend, trying to process everything that had happened. My emotions were a whirlwind, and I found it hard to focus on anything. I went through the motions of daily life, but inside, I felt like I was falling apart. Eventually, I decided to see a therapist. I knew I needed help to navigate the complex emotions I was experiencing. Talking to a professional helped me to understand my feelings and to start the process of healing. Alex tried to reach out to me multiple times, but I couldn't bring myself to talk to him. I needed time to figure out what I wanted, and his presence was a painful reminder of his betrayal. I focused on myself, trying to rebuild my shattered confidence and self-esteem. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, I began to find a new sense of normalcy. I reconnected with friends, took up new hobbies, and started to envision a future without Alex. It wasn't easy, but I knew I deserved better than a relationship built on lies and deceit. One day, out of the blue, I received a letter from Alex. It was long and heartfelt, filled with apologies and regrets. He admitted to everything, detailing how he had let himself get caught up in the excitement of the affair and how he had failed to appreciate what he had with me. He expressed his deep remorse and his hope that one day I could forgive him. Reading his words, I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to forgive him, to believe that we could rebuild what we had lost. But another part of me knew that the trust between us had been irreparably damaged. I couldn't go back to the way things were, no matter how much I wanted to. In the end, I decided to move on. I filed for divorce and focused on building a new life for myself. It was a difficult decision, but I knew it was the right one. I needed to find my own happiness, free from the shadows of Alex's betrayal. Looking back, I realized that the experience, as painful as it was, taught me valuable lessons about love, trust, and self-worth. I learned the importance of setting boundaries, of valuing myself, and of never settling for less than I deserve. Now, as I look forward to the future, I carry those lessons with me. I know that I am stronger than I ever realized, and that I have the power to create a life filled with love, honesty, and happiness. And while the scars of Alex's betrayal will always be a part of my story, they no longer define who I am or what I am capable of achieving. As time went on, I began to find joy in the small things again. I threw myself into work, taking on new projects and challenges that reignited my passion and creativity. I traveled, explored new places, and met new people. Each experience helped me to heal and grow, and I started to feel like myself again. One of the most transformative moments came when I decided to join a local support group for people who had been through similar experiences. Sharing my story and listening to others helped me to realize that I was not alone, that many people had faced betrayal and come out stronger on the other side. The support and camaraderie I found in that group were invaluable, and I made friendships that I knew would last a lifetime. I also took up journaling, using it as a tool to process my thoughts and emotions. Writing down my feelings helped me to gain clarity and perspective, and it became a therapeutic outlet for my pain and frustration. Through journaling, I discovered a resilience and strength within myself that I had never known existed. One evening, about a year after the night that had changed everything, I found myself reflecting on my journey. I realized that despite the pain and heartache, I had come a long way. I had learned to forgive, not just Alex, but also myself. I had learned to let go of the anger and bitterness that had once consumed me, and to embrace a future filled with possibility and hope. It was during this time of self-discovery that I met someone new. His name was David, and he was kind, compassionate, and understanding. We met through a mutual friend, and our connection was immediate and effortless. David knew about my past, and he never pressured me or rushed me. He gave me the space and time I needed to heal, and slowly, we began to build a relationship based on trust and mutual respect. With David, I experienced a love that was different from anything I had known before. It was gentle and patient, grounded in honesty and open communication. He made me feel valued and cherished, and for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to believe in the possibility of a happy future. As our relationship grew, I found myself reflecting on the lessons I had learned from my past. I was more mindful of setting boundaries, of speaking up for myself, and of ensuring that our relationship was built on a foundation of trust and mutual respect. David and I faced our challenges together, always striving to understand and support each other. One evening, as we sat together watching the sunset, David took my hand and looked into my eyes. "Sarah," he said softly, "I love you. I want to spend the rest of my life with you." Tears filled my eyes as I looked at him, feeling a surge of love and gratitude. "I love you too, David," I replied, my voice filled with emotion. "And I want the same." In that moment, I realized how far I had come. From the depths of betrayal and heartbreak, I had emerged stronger and more resilient. I had found love again, but more importantly, I had found myself. The journey had been difficult, but it had led me to a place of happiness and fulfillment that I had never imagined possible. As I move forward with my life, I carry with me the lessons of the past. I know that I am capable of overcoming adversity, of finding strength in the face of pain, and of creating a life filled with love, honesty, and joy. And while the scars of Alex's betrayal will always be a part of my story, they are no longer a source of pain. Instead, they serve as a reminder of my resilience and my capacity to heal and grow. In sharing my story, I hope to offer hope and encouragement to others who may be facing similar challenges. Betrayal can shatter your world, but it doesn't have to define you. With time, support, and self-compassion, it is possible to heal, to rebuild, and to find happiness again. Let's move on to the next story. After finding photos from my wife's secret trip with her ex, I realized everything I knew about our marriage was a lie. They say that ignorance is bliss. For a long time, I believed that. My name is Emily, and I want to share the story of how I uncovered a web of deceit that turned my life upside down. It's a tale of betrayal, heartbreak, and the painful process of rediscovering who I am after everything I thought I knew about my marriage was shattered. My wife, Laura, and I had been married for 6 years. We met at a mutual friend's party and clicked instantly. She was charming, intelligent, and had a way of making me feel like the most important person in the world. We moved in together after a year of dating, and 2 years later, we tied the knot. Our life together seemed perfect. We had a cozy apartment, fulfilling jobs, and dreams of starting a family. Laura worked in marketing, which often required her to travel for business. I trusted her implicitly and never questioned her trips. I, on the other hand, worked as a freelance graphic designer, which allowed me the flexibility to manage our home and be there whenever Laura returned from her trips. One evening, as Laura was away on yet another business trip, I decided to tidy up our shared office space. While organizing some files, I came across a USB drive that I didn't recognize. Curiosity got the better of me, and I plugged it into my laptop. I didn't expect to find anything unusual, maybe some work documents or old photos. What I found instead changed everything. The USB drive contained a folder labeled Vacation 2023. My heart skipped a beat. Laura and I hadn't taken a vacation in 2023. With a sense of dread, I opened the folder. There, staring back at me, were dozens of photos of Laura on a beach, in a picturesque town, and at various tourist spots. But she wasn't alone. Standing next to her, in almost every photo, was her ex, Mark. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the images. They looked happy, carefree, like a couple in love. There were photos of them dining at romantic restaurants, laughing together on the beach, and even one of them sharing a kiss under a stunning sunset. My mind raced as I tried to make sense of what I was seeing. Laura had told me she was on a business trip during those dates. She had lied to me, deceived me, and betrayed my trust. I felt a wave of nausea as the reality of the situation sank in. How long had this been going on? Was it just one trip, or were there more secrets hidden away? I needed answers, but Laura was still away, and I had no way of confronting her until she returned. The next few days were a blur. I went through the motions of my daily life, but my mind was consumed with thoughts of Laura and Mark. I replayed every moment of our relationship, searching for signs that I had missed. Had she been unhappy with me? Had there been clues that I was too blind to see? The uncertainty gnawed at me, making it hard to eat, sleep, or focus on anything else. When Laura finally returned from her trip, I was a mess of emotions. Anger, hurt, betrayal, and a desperate need for answers all swirled within me. I had rehearsed what I would say 100 times, but when she walked through the door, I froze. She greeted me with a warm smile and tried to kiss me, but I pulled away. "We need to talk," I said, my voice trembling with barely suppressed rage. Laura looked taken aback. "What's wrong, Emily?" she asked, concern etched on her face. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I found the photos, Laura, the ones from your vacation with Mark." Her face went pale, and for a moment she was speechless. "Emily, I can explain," she finally said, her voice shaking. "Explain what?" I demanded, my anger boiling over. "Explain how you lied to me, how you betrayed me, how you spent our anniversary with your ex while telling me you were on a business trip." Tears filled Laura's eyes, and she reached out to touch my arm. "Please, Emily, let me explain. It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" I shouted, unable to contain my frustration. "Because it looks pretty clear to me. You've been lying to me for who knows how long. Was our entire marriage a lie?" Laura broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. "It's not a lie, Emily. I love you. I never stopped loving you." "Then why?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why would you do this to us?" She took a deep breath, trying to compose herself. "Mark reached out to me last year. He was going through a tough time, and we started talking again. It was just as friends at first. But then he suggested the trip. I didn't want to tell you because I knew how it would look. I'm so sorry, Emily. I never meant to hurt you. I felt a wave of sadness and betrayal wash over me. You didn't want to tell me because you knew it was wrong, I said quietly. You knew it would hurt me, and you did it anyway. How can I ever trust you again? Laura didn't have an answer. She just stood there, tears streaming down her face, as the weight of her actions settled over us both. The days that followed were some of the hardest of my life. Laura moved into the guest room, and we barely spoke. I felt like a stranger in my own home, constantly reminded of the betrayal that had torn us apart. I spent hours poring over the photos, torturing myself with images of Laura and Mark together, trying to make sense of it all. Eventually, I knew I needed help. I started seeing a therapist, hoping to find some way to process my emotions and figure out what to do next. Talking to a professional helped me to understand my feelings and to start the long process of healing. It also made me realize that no matter how much I loved Laura, I couldn't stay in a relationship built on lies and deceit. I decided to separate from Laura. It was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made, but I knew it was the right one. I needed to find myself again, to rebuild my life and my sense of self-worth. Laura was devastated, but she understood. She knew that she had broken something between us that could never be fully repaired. As we went through the process of separating, I focused on taking care of myself. I leaned on my friends and family for support, finding strength in their love and encouragement. I threw myself into my work, finding solace in the creative outlet it provided. Slowly, I began to rediscover who I was outside of my relationship with Laura. One of the most important steps in my healing journey was letting go of the anger and bitterness that had consumed me. It wasn't easy, but I knew that holding on to those feelings would only hurt me in the long run. I worked through my emotions in therapy, finding ways to forgive Laura, and more importantly, to forgive myself for not seeing the signs. Over time, I started to rebuild my life. I moved to a new apartment, filled it with things that made me happy, and began to create new memories. I reconnected with old friends, took up new hobbies, and started to envision a future that was entirely my own. It wasn't always easy, and there were days when the pain of Laura's betrayal still felt fresh. But I knew I was on the right path. One evening, about a year after I had discovered the photos, I received a message from Laura. She wanted to meet and talk. I was hesitant at first, unsure if I was ready to face her again, but I agreed. We met at a small cafe, a neutral place where we could talk without the weight of our past hanging over us. Laura looked nervous, and for a moment I felt a pang of sympathy for her. She had hurt me deeply, but she was also human, flawed and struggling just like I was. We sat down, and she began to speak, her voice filled with regret. "Emily, I want to start by saying how sorry I am," she said, her eyes filled with tears. "I know I hurt you, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. I've spent the past year working on myself, trying to understand why I did what I did and how I can be a better person. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wanted you to know that I'm truly sorry." I listened to her, feeling a mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to lash out, to tell her how much pain she had caused. But another part of me felt a sense of closure. Hearing her acknowledge her mistakes and express genuine remorse helped me to finally let go of the anger I had been holding on to. "Thank you, Laura," I said quietly. "I appreciate you saying that. I've been working on myself too, trying to move forward and find happiness again. I hope you can do the same." We talked for a while longer, reminiscing about the good times we had shared and acknowledging the mistakes that had led us to this point. It was a bittersweet conversation, but it helped me to find a sense of peace. As we said our goodbyes, I knew that I was ready to fully move on. In the years that followed, I continued to build a life that was entirely my own. I traveled to places I had always wanted to see, made new friends, and pursued my passions with a renewed sense of purpose. I even met someone new, a wonderful woman named Rachel, who brought joy and love back into my life. With Rachel, I found a relationship built on trust, honesty, and mutual respect. It was everything I had ever wanted and more. Looking back, I realized that discovering Laura's betrayal was one of the most painful experiences of my life, but it also led me to a place of growth and self-discovery that I might never have reached otherwise. It taught me the importance of honesty, both with myself and with others, and the strength that comes from facing difficult truths. Now, as I look to the future, I carry the lessons of the past with me. I know that I am stronger than I ever realized, capable of overcoming adversity and building a life filled with love, happiness, and fulfillment. And while the scars of Laura's betrayal will always be a part of my story, they no longer define who I am or what I am capable of achieving. After my conversation with Laura, a weight I didn't realize I was carrying seemed to lift. I finally felt free from the shadows of our past and ready to embrace the future with an open heart. Rachel and I continued to grow closer, and our relationship flourished. She was kind, patient, and understanding, qualities that I had come to value more than ever. As Rachel and I navigated our relationship, I found myself reflecting on the importance of communication and trust. We made a point to be open and honest with each other, sharing our fears, dreams, and insecurities. It wasn't always easy, but it brought us closer and helped us to build a strong foundation for our future together. One of the most significant moments in our relationship came when we decided to take a trip together. It was a spontaneous decision, driven by a shared desire to explore the world and create new memories. We chose a destination that neither of us had visited before, a beautiful coastal town known for its stunning beaches and vibrant culture. The trip was everything I had hoped for and more. We spent our days exploring the town, lounging on the beach, and immersing ourselves in the local culture. In the evenings, we would sit by the ocean, watching the sunset and talking about our future. It was during one of those magical evenings that Rachel surprised me with a heartfelt confession. "Emily," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "there's something I've been wanting to tell you. I've fallen deeply in love with you. I can't imagine my life without you, and I want to spend the rest of my days making you as happy as you make me." Tears filled my eyes as I listened to her words. "Rachel, I love you too," I replied, my voice choked with emotion. "You've brought so much joy and love into my life. I feel incredibly lucky to have you." We embraced, feeling a profound sense of connection and love. In that moment, I knew that the painful journey I had been on was worth it. It had led me to Rachel, to a relationship built on trust, love, and mutual respect. As our relationship deepened, we began to talk about our future more seriously. We discussed our dreams of starting a family, of building a home together, and of supporting each other through life's challenges. The idea of marriage came up naturally, and it wasn't long before Rachel proposed during a romantic weekend getaway. Her proposal was simple yet deeply meaningful. She had arranged a picnic on a secluded beach, complete with candles and our favorite foods. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the ocean, Rachel got down on one knee and asked me to be her wife. I said yes without hesitation, overwhelmed with love and happiness. Our wedding was a small, intimate affair, attended by close friends and family. It was a day filled with love, laughter, and joy, a celebration of our journey and the love we had found in each other. As we exchanged our vows, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the path that had led me to this moment. It hadn't been easy, but it had brought me to Rachel, and for that, I was incredibly thankful. In the years that followed, Rachel and I built a beautiful life together. We supported each other's dreams, celebrated each other's successes, and faced life's challenges hand in hand. We traveled, explored new hobbies, and continued to grow as individuals and as a couple. Our love deepened with each passing day, and I felt a sense of fulfillment and happiness that I had never known before. Looking back on my journey, I realized that discovering Laura's betrayal was a turning point in my life. It forced me to confront painful truths, to reevaluate my sense of self, and to find strength and resilience within myself. It led me to Rachel, to a love that was true and unwavering, and to a life filled with joy and fulfillment. As I share my story, I hope to offer hope and encouragement to others who may be facing similar challenges. Betrayal and heartbreak can shatter your world, but they don't have to define you. With time, support, and self-compassion, it's possible to heal, to rebuild, and to find happiness again. I am living proof that even in the darkest moments, there is the potential for growth, for love, and for a future filled with endless possibilities. Let's move on to the next story. My sister always supported my relationship, but now I've learned she was secretly dating my partner. It's strange how life can turn on a dime. How one moment you think you know everything about the people closest to you, and the next, your entire world is turned upside down. My name is Hannah, and I want to share the story of how I discovered that my sister, Lily, who had always supported my relationship, was secretly dating my partner, Max. Lily and I were close growing up. She was 3 years older than me and had always been my role model. We shared everything, our secrets, our dreams, our fears. Even as adults, we remained close, seeing each other regularly and supporting each other through thick and thin. So when I started dating Max, I naturally introduced him to Lily early on. Max and I met at a mutual friend's birthday party. He was charming, funny, and had a smile that could light up a room. We hit it off immediately and began dating. He was everything I had ever wanted in a partner, kind, attentive, and supportive. We quickly fell in love and moved in together after a year of dating. Lily was happy for us. She and Max got along well, and I often joked that she liked him almost as much as I did. She would often join us for dinners, movie nights, and weekend outings. I never thought anything of it. Why would I? She was my sister, and I trusted her completely. Our relationship seemed perfect. We were discussing getting engaged, buying a house, and starting a family. I was on cloud nine, convinced that I had found my happily ever after. But then, everything changed. It all started on a seemingly ordinary day. Max had gone out for the afternoon to run some errands, and I decided to do some cleaning around the apartment. As I was tidying up, I came across Max's phone on the kitchen counter. It buzzed with a new message. Normally, I wouldn't have thought twice about it, but the name on the screen caught my eye. Lily. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened the message. It was a simple "I miss you," followed by a heart emoji. My heart skipped a beat. Why would Lily be sending Max a message like that? I scrolled through their conversation, my hands trembling. What I found left me breathless. Their messages were filled with intimate conversations, plans to meet up, and declarations of love. They had been seeing each other behind my back for months, maybe even longer. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. My sister and my partner, the two people I trusted most in the world, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I didn't know what to do. I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and utter disbelief. I couldn't confront Max immediately. He wasn't home, and I needed time to process what I had just discovered. Instead, I decided to call Lily. My hands shook as I dialed her number. "Hey, sis," she answered cheerfully. "What's up?" "Lily," I said, my voice trembling. "I found the messages between you and Max. How could you do this to me?" There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Hannah, I'm so sorry," she finally said, her voice filled with guilt. "I never wanted to hurt you." I felt a wave of anger wash over me. "Then why did you do it? How long has this been going on?" "It started a few months ago," she admitted. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. We were spending a lot of time together, and one thing led to another." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You were supposed to be my sister. You were supposed to support me, not betray me." "I know," she said, her voice breaking. "I've made a terrible mistake, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But please, just let me explain." I hung up the phone, unable to listen to her excuses any longer. I felt like my world was crumbling around me. I had lost not only my partner, but also my sister. I sat down on the couch, tears streaming down my face, and wondered how I was going to get through this. When Max returned home, I was ready. I confronted him with the evidence, and he didn't deny it. He apologized, said he never meant to hurt me and that it was a mistake. But his words felt hollow. The damage was done, and there was no way to undo it. I told him to pack his things and leave. He tried to protest, to explain, but I couldn't bear to look at him. I needed him out of my life. As he left, I felt a mix of relief and sorrow. I had loved him, trusted him, and he had shattered my heart. The days that followed were some of the hardest of my life. I felt lost, betrayed, and utterly alone. I didn't know who to turn to or how to move forward. I took some time off work, unable to focus on anything but the pain and confusion swirling inside me. One evening, a few weeks after the confrontation, I received a letter from Lily. It was a long, heartfelt apology, filled with regret and sorrow. She admitted to everything, explained how it had started, and expressed her deep remorse. She said she understood if I never wanted to speak to her again, but she hoped that one day I could find it in my heart to forgive her. Reading her words, I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to forgive her, to believe that we could somehow rebuild our relationship, but another part of me was filled with anger and hurt. How could I ever trust her again? I decided to meet with her. We met at a quiet cafe, and seeing her sitting there looking so sad and remorseful brought tears to my eyes. We talked for hours, going over everything that had happened, trying to make sense of it all. "I'm so sorry, Hannah," she said, her voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you. I've lost your trust, and I don't know if I'll ever earn it back, but I'm willing to try. I love you, and I can't stand the thought of losing you." I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "Lily, I'm hurt and angry, but you're my sister. I can't just cut you out of my life. It's going to take time, and things will never be the same, but I want to try to move forward." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, Hannah. I promise I'll do everything I can to make this right." Rebuilding our relationship wasn't easy. It took time, patience, and a lot of difficult conversations. We started with small steps, meeting for coffee, going for walks, slowly rebuilding the trust that had been shattered. It was a long, painful process, but over time, we began to heal. As for Max, I had no interest in rekindling our relationship. He tried reaching out a few times, but I made it clear that we were done. I needed to focus on myself, on healing and moving forward, and I couldn't do that with him in my life. In the months that followed, I threw myself into my work and my hobbies, finding solace in the things that brought me joy. I reconnected with old friends, leaned on my support system, and started to rebuild my life. Slowly but surely, I began to feel like myself again. One of the most important steps in my healing journey was seeking therapy. Talking to a professional helped me to process my emotions, understand the complexities of the betrayal, and find ways to move forward. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Therapy gave me the tools to heal and the strength to face my emotions head-on. Through therapy, I also learned to set boundaries and prioritize my own well-being. I realized that while forgiveness was important, it didn't mean forgetting or ignoring my own needs. I needed to protect myself and ensure that I was in a healthy, supportive environment. As time went on, Lily and I continued to work on our relationship. We had good days and bad days, but we were committed to rebuilding our bond. She showed genuine remorse and made a concerted effort to regain my trust. It wasn't easy, but slowly, we began to find our way back to each other. A turning point came when we decided to take a trip together, a sister's getaway to a cabin in the mountains. It was a chance for us to reconnect, to leave behind the chaos of our everyday lives and focus on healing. We spent the week hiking, talking, and just being together. It was a time of reflection and growth, and by the end of the trip, I felt a renewed sense of hope for our relationship. Meanwhile, I also focused on rebuilding my sense of self. I took up new hobbies, explored new interests, and invested in my personal growth. I realized that I had lost a part of myself in the relationship with Max and the subsequent betrayal, and it was time to rediscover who I was and what I wanted from life. Through this journey, I learned the importance of self-love and self-compassion. I learned that it was okay to put myself first, to prioritize my own happiness and well-being. I surrounded myself with positive influences and built a life that was fulfilling and meaningful. One evening, about a year after the initial discovery, I received a message from an old friend inviting me to a party. I was hesitant at first, still wary of letting new people into my life, but I decided to go. It was a chance to step out of my comfort zone and embrace the new chapter of my life. At the party, I met someone new, Ben. He was kind, funny, and genuine. We hit it off immediately, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of hope and excitement. We started dating, taking things slow and building a relationship based on trust and mutual respect. Ben knew about my past and he was understanding and supportive. He never pressured me, always respecting my boundaries and giving me the space I needed. Our relationship was different, healthy, supportive, and filled with open communication. It was everything I had ever wanted. As my relationship with Ben blossomed, so did my relationship with Lily. We continued to work on our bond, finding new ways to connect and support each other. It wasn't perfect, and there were still moments of pain and uncertainty, but we were committed to moving forward together. Looking back on the journey, I realized that it was one of the most challenging and transformative experiences of my life. It forced me to confront painful truths, to reevaluate my relationships, and to find strength within myself. It taught me the importance of trust, forgiveness, and self-love. Now, as I move forward, I carry the lessons of the past with me. I know that I'm stronger and more resilient than I ever realized. I have built a life filled with love, happiness, and fulfillment, surrounded by people who truly care about me. And while the scars of betrayal will always be a part of my story, they no longer define who I am or what I am capable of achieving. As I share my story, I hope to offer hope and encouragement to others who may be facing similar challenges. Betrayal and heartbreak can shatter your world, but they don't have to define you. With time, support, and self-compassion, it's possible to heal, to rebuild, and to find happiness again. I am living proof that even in the darkest moments, there is the potential for growth, for love, and for a future filled with endless possibilities.